Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. I was supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, by the CIA. Why? Because I should be pro-American. I'm fed up with it. I don't want to do it anymore.
Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling, irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
0.1% chance of death. Widespread, small amount of deaths. It's similar to flu.
Millions of people saw that news conference. But since then, YouTube has taken it down, and so-called health experts have attacked these two doctors, saying the methodology they used was completely flawed. The question is, was it?
Why are we doing this now?
The latest censorship efforts that have been happening, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Google all taken part, deleting information by some doctors who are holding the White Coat Summit on Capitol Hill. They provided a video of their press conference where they give their own perspective on what's happening with illnesses and health in 2020. Donald Trump Jr. posted this video specifically of one doctor talking about hydroxychloroquine. He was then suspended from Twitter, locked out, prevented from using it, punished by the big tech oligarchs that now want to control everything you see and hear. Then Twitter decided to delete the US president's tweet and remove the video that him and his supporters were sharing on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. A video, by the way, that got millions of views, but was essentially fully erased and put down the memory hole of the big social tech monopoly internet highways that just a few individuals control.
the sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
There's no question about the fact that Mockingbird is real. It started out paying journalists in major media, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists, to print fake stories that the CIA wanted in the press and fake interviews. And this was revealed in the Church Committee.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to two American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
And of course, then the CIA destroyed the rest of the files, which is what they do. George H.W. Bush came out and finally made the statement about Mockingbird. Well, we're going to officially stop the Mockingbird program. The CIA will no longer pay journalists to write stories. From now on, the program is voluntary, which means Mockingbird continues today.
Means that the CIA program consisted of literally paying off editors and reporters at most mainstream news outlets. The New York Times, CBS, Time, The Washington Post, Newsweek, AP, Reuters, and countless more.
When's the last time you've seen a mainstream media outlet do a serious investigative report on the actions of the CIA? But there's a reason for that.
This would mean that
the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully. You say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
Platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Okay. Do you think that Project Mockingbird continues today, or has it been discontinued? Where is it at now?
No, as a matter of fact, it's worse today and it's stronger today.
Well, I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I was educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public. But seeing right now, within the last months, how far how the German and American media tries to bring war to the people in Europe, to bring war to Russia. This is a point of no return, and I'm going to stand up and say it is not right what I have done in the past. To manipulate people, to make propaganda against Russia, and it is not right what my colleagues do and have done in the past, because they are bribed to betray the people, not only in Germany, all over Europe. The reason writing this book was that I am very fearful of a new war in Europe, and I don't like to have this situation again, because war is never coming from itself. There is always people behind it to push for war. And this is not only politicians, this is journalists too. And I just have written in the book how we have betrayed in the past our readers just to push for war. And because I don't want this anymore. I'm fed up with this propaganda. We live in a banana republic and not in a democratic country where we have press freedom, where we have human rights. If you see the German media, especially my colleagues who day by day write against the Russians, who are in transatlantic organizations and who are supported by the United States to do so, well, people like me, I became an honorary citizen of the state of Oklahoma in the United States. Just why? Just because I write pro-American. I wrote pro-American. I was supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, by the CIA. Why? Because I should be pro-American. I'm fed up with it. I don't want to do it anymore. And so I've just written a book.
In the book Bought Journalism, Udo Ulfkorte recounts the 17 years he spent working for a major German newspaper. In that time, he claims that he was paid by US intelligence services to put a different spin or slant on stories, also going as far as to claim that some media outlets were no more than just an extension of the NATO propaganda service.
The shocking element of the book will be when people will read it who don't know anything about how media is done in Germany as well as in Europe, in the West in general, and people who still believe that we have something like a free and independent media. I think for those people it will be a real shocking experience, because it contradicts everything they might believe in.
I have been a non-official cover. It means you too work for an intelligence agency. You help them if they want you to help them, but they will never, when they find out that you are not only a journalist but a spy too, they will never say, oh, this was one of our guys. They will not know you. That means non-official cover. So I have helped them in several situations, and I feel ashamed for that too.
Естественно, чем дальше он говорил вещи, которые противоречили принятой в той же самой Германии линии, тем с большим подозрением к нему относились, но смерть его, она выглядит более чем сомнительной. Подставлены таким образом сердечные приступы – это один из любимых приемов спецслужб. Я думаю, что та же самая БНД немецкая здесь ничем от других не отличается.
That the U.S. military has been manipulating social media by using fake identities to influence conversations and spread pro-American propaganda. It's called Online Persona Management Services. And under the CENTCOM contract, it allows the creation of up to 10 sock puppet accounts for every U.S. serviceman or woman working on the program. The stipulations are that every fake persona must have a convincing background, history, and supporting friend networks so that it will remain undetectable from even the most sophisticated adversaries. According to The Guardian, the project has been likened by web experts to China's attempts to control and restrict free speech on the internet. And that critics are saying that it allows the U.S. military to create a false consensus in online conversations, crowd out unwelcome opinions, and smother commentaries or reports that do not correspond with its own objectives. Now, of course, according to CENTCOM, their only objective is to counter violent extremists and enemy propaganda outside of the U.S., and that it would be unlawful to address U.S. audiences with the technology. Wow, unlawful, really? Interesting. Because the newest version of the 2013 NDAA included an interesting amendment. This amendment legalized domestic propaganda on the American public. You heard me right. The newest NDAA wasn't just reauthorizing the indefinite detention of American citizens. It also allowed the U.S. government to legally carry out misinformation campaigns against the citizens of this country. But is this really surprising to anyone? I mean, the corporate media is basically a propaganda arm of the U.S. government anyways, isn't it? Why the need to legalize the use of propaganda when you already have an entire mainstream media establishment lacking to the White House, reprinting government press releases without question, selling wars, and carrying water for the administration? In fact, aside from everything I just mentioned, the Pentagon already spends $4 billion a year to influence public opinion, and the Department of Defense also spends hundreds of millions of dollars on information campaigns in countless countries occupied by the U.S. military.
Starting in 1900, we entered a previously unimaginable time of modern technology. Advances that allowed the rulers of this world to construct and direct our stories in ways we previously never imagined. As a result, new techniques to control the population were realized. These are the people from the companies that we have trusted to deliver us our news and tell our stories. This has always been about controlling what we as the population think and hear. They help create our culture and influence our society. We as citizens only trust them because as a society, we think that the gatekeepers have our best interest in mind.
The dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job. That is our job. That is our job. Our job.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
He investigated the CIA and the reasons for its development. He said Russia was never a threat to America because it lost 25 million people. And what was a threat was peace. The peace that was it was disrupting the military-industrial complex's profits. So they created the CIA, Garrison says, to create a new foreign policy which would put us into a state of perpetual war where we are now. Gore Vidal predicted it, and so did George Orwell predict it. Project Mockingbird was begun in the middle 50s and overseen by Allen Dulles, who was head of the CIA. And their purpose, announced purpose, was to infiltrate all of American media for the purpose of creating and changing our minds about peace and developing a permanent war policy. The first fake war was a Cold War with the Soviet Union, according to Garrison. The second fake war that you're well aware of course, was the fake Gulf of Tonkin resolution that got us into Vietnam, and then later the fake weapons of mass destruction, which got us into Iraq. Jim Garrison solved the case. You know, in 1968, Governor, I was under contract to Westinghouse to be Merv Griffin's replacement when he went to CBS. My producer was going to be Roger Ailes. Roger and I used to have extensive conversations about the news. He was Nixon's media advisor at the time, and he said to me, John, it's not what you put on the news that changes the world. It's what you don't put on the news that changes the world. And the world was changed by the fact that nothing about what Jim Garrison discovered was true about elements of the Central Intelligence Agency murdered our president. He says it on live television, and it was so powerful.
The corporations don't control RT, and they don't control Jesse Ventura, so I can still speak freely on RT. And, we're battling our government. They claim the Vietnam veteran governor and mayor is a foreign agent. Well, that's cool. I'll be a foreign agent, but I'll be one that tells the truth. And remember, when the government lies, the truth, yes, the truth, becomes a traitor. Stay vigilant, people.